Gundam 0080, subtitled War in the Pocket, is a 6-episode mini-series set during the Universal Century of the Gundam franchise, where I guess the bulk of activity happened, except this happens to focus in a different way throughout all of that. I say I guess because my knowledge of the franchise is rather limited, in this case for two important reasons. I'll eventually be covering the Mobile Suit Gundam movies, and I don't want to learn too much that could spoil that. And I have jury duty starting a week from Monday, and I still haven't finished Move Along Home yet. So we will step into this knowing little about the subject matter and assess it from that point of view as an independent work rather than a part of the franchise as a whole. And if you hate this review for that reason, at least take comfort in knowing that I'm about to be locked away for a week in an uncomfortable room listening to two assholes compete to decide who's the most boring. So this sub slips into position to launch its weapons, and since we did giant monsters on Tuesday, then it's got to be giant robots today. This is Big in Japan week. Sort of. They're launching a sneak attack on a Federation base in the Arctic. Interesting technique. That's the just F it landing style, am I right? The first thing that passed my mind, besides their general lack of grace, was that these guys look rather atypical. They're so bulky and lacking the at least generally human look that I expected. And then we see the base defenders scramble into action and their robots conform to that expectation. Which is odd because things for the most part have been from the perspective of the attackers here, focusing on the men inside those robots while the defenders are either terrified red shirts or faceless bots. But the trick is that, I think, this story is from the bad guy point of view. Someone may get into the overall war in the comments to debate good guy, bad guy, but my point is that the side that's attacking seems to be run by villains, even though they seem more like just regular soldiers. Just soldiers that happen to be on the bad guy's side. The Federation is going to need to pull off a pretty daring defensive to hold them off. One just flops to a landing, another shoots itself with its own gun. It's like Giant Robot Wars meets the Three Stooges. They're here for whatever's on that space shuttle rocket thingy, and Andy's the only one with a chance to stop it from taking off. But his Federation counterpart, called a GM, has him pinned down. But he is so committed to the mission that he puts himself, and more importantly, his styled hair, into the line of fire. But alas, the GM lets him know that he's failed his role of initiative and guns him down, allowing the shuttle to get away. But now it's time to get to the primary setting for this story, Side 6, a giant space tube which houses a colony. Not unlike Arcology from last week, except this is much more Earth-like, and there's no chance of Kevin Sorbo showing up, so that's a plus. The Federation is at war with the Zeon, but these guys have decided to remain neutral in the conflict for now. But there's still interest in the war, especially amongst kids because, well, that's what boys are like. 11-year-old Al is our viewpoint character, and per Japanese law, all such boys must run around in tiny pants. He's a typical kid, goofing off in school until the tattletale turns him in, talking about the war, even the cool Federation badge Che got from his older brother.
He's making it up. The Federation doesn't even have any mobile suits, you dummies.
Well, such a challenge cannot go unanswered, especially in the face of space cooties. So Al insists that he's seen one of these at the port in secret. But without proof, Dorothy won't accept it.
That pilot rank badge is a fake, too. Why, you... hey, what are you doing?
Ah, right in the Side 6. Well, that tears it. Honor now demands that they get proof, and luckily he's going to the spaceport to meet his dad anyway, so all Al will need to do is record footage of this secret giant robot to prove to a girl that she is wrong. That's certainly worth the potential espionage charges. Luckily, he's able to convince the guy who catches him that he's an idiot who wandered in here looking for the bathroom, and at the very least the first half is true. He does get a chance to meet up with his dad there. His parents are separated right now. Living in a giant tennis ball can is kind of hard on a family. Also the whole war thing. That's why the neighbor's daughter, Chris, was away. But she has a run-in with Al while unpacking because her secret work is taking her back inside. But first, to get inside because there's rain and in the distance thunder, because nothing is better for an artificial satellite than lightning strikes. But other than that, it's a fine evening of drinking tea with someone while wearing girls' clothes and also playing video games. Well, luckily the hospital was vaporized. Otherwise people might have survived the devastation and we'd have no place to bring them. His mom stops by to make sure he does all the stuff that he's supposed to do. Homework, remember his PE clothes.
Yes, Mom. 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 Yes, Mom.
And somewhere Jack Thompson is licking his chops at the sight of a psycho kid vaporizing his town. By the way, love that amongst all the monsters is just a very large house cat. It's not even like a tiger or something, it's just a cat. To continue showing how well balanced he is, Al starts filming Chris next door through her window because there's nothing creepy about that at all. At least she's not changing or anything, so she takes that as good-natured video journaling. The neighbor's daughter has returned, all that stuff, and it might very well be that. It's just hard to forget his mantra while annihilating his own hometown. But he's probably just in need for some guidance. With the difficulty of separation and struggling with his grades, he's acting up a bit. That's to be expected. So long as he limits himself to blowing up digital cities, it's probably all right. But soon, the city is under threat for realsies, although not from Al, from the mobile suits that have shown up and start mixing it up in the streets. The kids are naturally amazed and overjoyed to have a front row seat to this real combat, and probably the most definitive proof possible that they were right about the Federation having their own suits. Hard to argue when one is crushing the local Hardys. But it's one of the Zeons buzzing him that seems to have Al's attention, and he chases the crashing mobile suit into the woods. But on arriving, he finds the pilot pointing a gun at him. Uh-oh. What will befall Al now? Will he and Dorothy finally give in to their passions? Will the house cat eat the giant seahorse? Gundam 0080 War in the Pocket will continue in 2 weeks. As I said, I went into this basically blind, but the first episode was nicely structured to make it easy even for someone like me to pick up on what's going on. Sure, you can't tell the Zeon are the villains from this part, but that's part of the point. It's a very small picture of the war that's going on, and up this close, the characters aren't part of some faceless army of mooks. We get the gist of what's going on with Side 6 in this as well, and yet we still have time to focus on establishing Al, how he's in many ways a typical kid, and yet his behavior suggesting that there's a problem here. His low grades and getting trouble in school, well, that's not atypical of kids in his situation, to be sure. But his willingness to sneak into secure areas just to prove Dorothy wrong, and his creepy-ass behavior with the video game, that suggests that there's more to this than that, which will lead into his relationship with that pilot. All this plus some good action made this a fine start to the miniseries.
All units increase your speed to 30. We'll land at 1500 hours as planned. Report says the beach will be foggy, temperatures 12 below.